When I first reviewed the Pixel 5, I called it a disappointing phone. Now, to be clear, that wasn't me saying that the phone itself was bad. It was just that as someone who loved using Google's flagship phones, it definitely felt like a significant downgrade. But I wanted to revisit this phone and look at it more from the perspective of an average consumer, someone who wasn't coming from a phone like the Pixel 4 XL or perhaps another premium flagship device. And I want to try and answer once and for all the big question of whether this phone is worth the money in 2021 and ultimately whether I still consider it to be quote unquote disappointing. So let's begin. Now, in terms of design, in my initial review, whilst I really liked the front of the phone thanks to those evenly sized bezels all the way around, I'll admit I was a bit harsh in regards to the back of the phone. But if you were someone coming from using, let's say, a glossy backed phone, regardless of whether that was glass or plastic, I actually think you'll really enjoy the slightly textured finish on the back of the Pixel 5, even though technically you are touching plastic and not metal or glass. And if you like smaller phones, well, this one has a really nice and comfortable form factor. In a day and age where pretty much every high-end flagship is this huge chunk of metal that you more often than not have to use with two hands, the Pixel 5 is very moderately sized and it makes for great one-handed use. Now, in terms of the display, I will say that 90Hz is starting to feel a little dated now that we're almost halfway through 2021. But again, for anyone who's been using a phone that has a 60Hz panel, which will be most average consumers looking to upgrade, then this display will still feel fantastic and buttery smooth. I do wish Google would use brighter displays though, as their displays are consistently some of the dimmest I've used when set to their max brightness settings, which means they might not be the best option if you're someone always using your phone in bright conditions outside. Now, one kind of crazy revelation I've had since reviewing the Pixel 5 is that because of the home screen launcher itself, which is virtually uncustomizable, I've come to realize that I don't actually really enjoy using Pixel software anymore. I honestly really don't like the way that the home screen launcher looks straight out of the box. And so to bring back some customization flexibility, I find myself always rooting Pixel phones. And if you want to see how I've set up this home screen in particular, then you can check out the full step-by-step tutorial that I made a little while ago up in the cards and down in the description below. But because I now rely on applications like Google Pay or the Service New South Wales app that holds a digital copy of my driver's license, both of which do not work when rooted, I'm sort of stuck. But for an average consumer, gotta remember that that's the perspective I'm trying to dial in here. The software experience is actually still really nice. For anyone who doesn't feel the need to customize their home screen layouts, in terms of software, Pixel phones are still the way to go. Okay, but really, when it comes to whether or not I'd be recommending this phone to someone, the biggest reason why I would suggest they pick it up would have to be the cameras. Now, I know at this point, pretty much every other major flagship has caught up to Google in all areas related to camera performance, and whether it be for taking landscape daytime shots or video capturing, the Pixel 5 certainly isn't the phone I'd be recommending. In fact, to prove my point, let's do a really quick video test with the Pixel 5, the OnePlus 9 Pro, and the Galaxy S21 Ultra. And to test the video quality, we're going to do so whilst I thank today's video sponsor, Skillshare. Okay, so over to the OnePlus 9 Pro now, but you should also be able to see a little icon down the bottom of the screen somewhere to indicate which phone I'm using to record the different parts of this video test. All right, now over to the S21 Ultra. Now, Skillshare is an incredible online learning community that has thousands of classes across a wide range of categories, including graphic design, video editing, cinematography, just to name a few. And what's great is that you just pay a monthly price, and that gives you access to any class that you like. Now, a lot of you noticed that for my recent OnePlus 9 Pro review video, the intro in that video was actually an effect that I'd been talking about for the past little while in my past Skillshare reads. And that was actually a technique that I learnt from a class on Skillshare. And so it was super gratifying to be able to finally include that complete effect in a finished video. But I also couldn't go without mentioning the man himself, Marques Brownlee, who just recently launched his very own class on Skillshare. If you've ever wanted an insight into what it looks like to create tech videos, particularly for YouTube, then that is a fantastic place to start.
And wrapping it up with the S21 Ultra, Skillshare Premium starts at less than $10 a month, but because they're sponsoring today's video, they're offering a free trial to the first 1,000 people who use my link down in the description below. So make sure that you check it out and get learning.
So as you can see, for video capturing, whilst it's not bad, the Pixel 5 is definitely pretty low on the charts, particularly when you think about its limited feature set, like no 8K, no 4K 120, no 4K 60 with the ultra wide. It's a pretty limited video camera. But there is one area where I still think Google takes the crown with their images, and that is portrait photos. No matter how good other phone cameras get, Google just cannot be beat, it seems, when it comes to how they process their portrait images. Whenever I'm using the Pixel 5 to take portrait images in particular, people literally always comment at how nice the results are. I don't care about side-by-sides or pixel peeping. I never get the sort of comments I do when using any other phone bar the Pixel lineup to take portrait images. But here's the issue. The Pixel 4a takes the exact same portrait shots as the Pixel 5, and it's nearly half the price. And that's the big conundrum with this phone. If it was the only phone launched by Google last year, boom, easy sell, easy recommendation. But it wasn't the only phone that they released. As we all know, they also released the Pixel 4a and the Pixel 4a 5G, and those phones are what make the Pixel 5 so hard to recommend. The three phones are actually really, really similar. And in fact, I'd say in the hands of an average consumer, they'd find it really tough to find the differences. Wireless charging? Who cares? An IP rating? Who cares? An ultra-wide camera? Well, the Pixel 4a 5G has that. And then really, it's just the 90 Hz panel, which is definitely nice, but is it worth the extra $200 on top of the 4a 5G or the extra $450 on top of the regular 4a? For the average consumer, no. So where does that leave us? What does Google need to do this year to get its head back in the game with its entire lineup of phones? Well, I think perhaps for one, they scrap the bigger variant of the A lineup and instead sub the next version of the Pixel 5 in its place. But the key factor is that it's gotta be at the same price as what the 4a 5G was at launch. So same upgraded specs like the Pixel 5, but with the size and price of the Pixel 4a 5G. And to be honest, I think they should unify the branding as well. Scrap the 5a title and go straight for the 6a, then the 6a XL, which is effectively the Pixel 5 replacement, and then to cap it all off, they release a Pixel 6 Pro, which would mark Google's return at manufacturing a top-of-the-line flagship phone. And whilst I know this probably won't happen, I think they should release all of these phones at the exact same time at the back end of the year. What this would do is give consumers the confidence to know that these are all of the latest options they have to pick from when it comes to Google phones. Last year, the Pixel 4a released so close to the Pixel 5 that a lot of people were hesitant to buy that phone. But then when the 5 came out a month or two later, it was like, oh, maybe I should just get the Pixel 4a instead, but now at a discounted price. It didn't make any sense from a business standpoint. And so that's my thoughts. A Pixel 5 7 months later video, which has kind of turned into an overall look at what Google should do with their smartphone lineup going forward. As for the Pixel 5, do I think you should buy it? Well, I think the answer is still a pretty clear no. The Pixel 4a and 4a 5G are almost the same phone, but at a much lower price point. And then you've got phones like the OnePlus 8T or the Galaxy S21, both at a very similar price point to the Pixel 5, and with both, you're getting much better bang for your buck. Is the Pixel 5 a bad phone? No. Is it still a disappointing phone? Yeah, it kinda is.